I grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, so I'm not originally from Kentucky. I went to William Allen High School. For a while, it was me and my mom. She was a single parent, and when she remarried, remarried my dad, Joe, who is a former Marine. He was a ground pounder during, you know. But pretty much he became my role model, looked up to him a lot. When I went to high school, I found out they had a Navy junior ROTC program, and I used to think it was cool how Joe would say, like, let's field day and meet at 1800 hours, and I had no idea what any of that stuff was. So I joined ROTC, and throughout high school that was kind of like my little niche. Like, I got along with everybody there. You know, I really enjoyed the structure of it, and it was ran by a retired mass sergeant in the Marine Corps. So, you know, all growing up, I pretty much just looked up to Marines. So when it came time to graduate high school, I wanted to go to college to be the first one in my family. I got accepted to Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach, Florida. They had an ROTC program, apply for a scholarship, and didn't get it. And with their tuition being completely outrageous, I decided to go active duty military first. And when it came time to pick, it was, you know, hands down, Marine Corps. My mom also, way back, you know, she was in the Army for 4 years as a military police. And we would go out to restaurants or, you know, to the park. My dad, Joe, would have, you know, USMC sweatshirt on. My mom would have, you know, an Army t-shirt. Random people would come up to him and be like, hey, Semper Fi, buddy, like, I'm a Marine too. And just like the camaraderie that I saw between the Marines, you know, hands down, I thought Marines were the place to go. You know, everybody, big, open family, so. It's just something I felt I should do. Like I said, my mom and dad were in the military. I have an older sister who is 27 now. She grew up with her father. She is in the Navy as an officer. And I also have an older brother who lived with his father. He's a Marine also, but he was stationed in Japan, so I don't really know him that well. You know, I didn't want to be one of those people in the military that does, you know, 4 or 8 years, whatever, and don't leave the country. You know, don't get deployed. You know, I feel like being on a deployment, I feel like I've done my part, did what I had to do. You know, I actually served my time. So I was excited to get deployed. I am a airframes mechanic. Eventually, you know, I wanted to be a pilot. I just thought it would be a cool job. But in order to be a pilot in the military, you have to have a college degree to become an officer. So I figured while an enlisted guy, if I did any kind of aviation maintenance, I would still be on the aircraft, you know, turning wrenches, learning how it works, how the systems are. So I knew I wanted to be a mechanic on helicopters, or on any plane actually. And then when I went to the recruiter, the only job that was open was an airframes mechanic, which is metal fabrication and hydraulics. I got off active duty in October, and I wanted to stay in, but apparently there's a lot when it comes into re-enlisting with boat spaces, and you know, if they have a need for your job or if there's a different job that you can take over. And I really just couldn't find exactly what I wanted to do. And that's the best part with the military. I mean, if you have your mind set and you say, okay, I want to do this, then you do it. And if you don't, you just say, you know, if I can't be an airframes mechanic, then I'm going to get out. So I got out, and there was an airframe spot in the reserves open. So now, as soon as I got off active duty, I re-enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserves. And it's 2 days a month. So I'm pretty sure for the next 18 years I can go hang out 2 days a month.
So what was it like the first day you arrived at your unit while you were on active duty?
It was a mess. I mean, I'm not really a girly girl, but I never used tools before. And when I first checked in my unit, one of my sergeants was like, hey, you know, go grab me a 5/18 socket and ratchet wrench and a drill bit. And I'm just like, what's a socket? So it was bad. They told me to go hang out in Home Depot and learn what tools were called. Because in school, you pretty much just learn, how to read a schematic, how to read diagrams, and just like the basics of how stuff works. You don't actually do any hands-on. So my first couple months there was a process. It was a learning process. I am stationed still with HMH 772 in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, but we are currently moving to Fort Dix, New Jersey. We are, work on the biggest, baddest helicopters the Marine Corps has to offer. So pretty much our mission is to transport troops and cargo throughout, the U.S. or overseas. And we also do public affairs since we are a reserve unit. So we're real big on the Toys for Tots. We go to the air shows, we do static displays, all kinds of fun things. Officially in March 2009, we got the activation order because it is a reserve unit. All our reserve Marines had to come on active duty for a year. So come March, everyone showed up. Mostly it was everyone getting all their paperwork filled out, making sure, we had powers of attorneys, wills, everything packed up. And then after that was taken care of, a month before we left, we started breaking down aircraft because you can't fit an entire helicopter into a plane and ship it over. You have to break it down into pieces. So I was nervous, excited and nervous. Many of the people in my unit that I worked with, because it is a reserve unit, haven't deployed before. There was maybe a handful that have been overseas 2 or 3 times, but most of us, this was going to be our first deployment. And so that made me nervous, and we had less manpower than a normal active duty squadron, and we also, on a day-to-day basis, are only in charge of 6 aircraft, whereas when we got overseas, we had over 10. So, I was just real nervous about how it was going to all work out, more planes, less people every day. And then eventually I was just so preoccupied with, my job and what I was going to be doing, I didn't really think about, being away from home for 7 months, 8 months.
All right, when you get there, what's your unit's task?
Well, transporting troops and cargo, but when we initially showed up, nothing was set up. There was no chow halls, there was no showers.
Where'd you go?
We slept on the flight line for a day or 2.
I mean, in Afghanistan.
We went to Camp Leatherneck. It's by the Helmand province, but there was nothing set up. It's originally Camp Bastion, which is a British base, and we're just, kind of a part of it. But yeah, nothing was set up. We got there and slowly, I slept outside for a day until they found a tent with a spare bed for me to sleep in. We went right to the flight line, started building tents to work out of because the helicopters haven't arrived yet because they were still in other planes, still on their way over, broke down in Qatar and wherever else they stopped at on their way. But eventually everyone got there all in one piece and we started building our helicopters back up. Everyone knows their job and everyone knew what they had to do. And as far as the airframe shop go where I worked, we had 4 or 5 guys that recently transferred from our unit from an active duty squadron. And they had deployed to Iraq, 2, 3, 4 times before that. So they had a real good handle on things and they really stepped up to show us, how everything worked. And we worked 12 on, 12 off every day. And, just got the job done, I guess. First time I was there, I was nervous because when you fly overseas, you actually have 50 cal guns in your windows and on your tail. And I've had some training on them in the States, every once in a while we go and we do gun ranges, but this is my first time 50 cal in hand flying over hostile territory, and I was just nerves were shot. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to do, and it just once you got in the air, though, I was flying with, people that I've known for 2 years now. So once I got off the ground and flew around a little bit, nerves got calm because I realized I was with people that I could trust and I knew what they were doing. I think we did something like landed in, a forward operating base, a FOB, where, the grunts are pushed out towards the city, dropped off some ammo, picked up some guys, flew them back, and then that was just kind of the routine from there on out. Load on 24 people, take them somewhere, drop them off, load on crates and boxes, and take them somewhere, drop them off, pick up more.
Was there any time when your aircraft received any enemy contact?
I did not see any, but there were times flying into hostile areas where the guys on the ground would come over the radio and say, "Hey, you guys need to pull out of here. You're taking fire." And we'd clear the city, go back, hang out over the desert, come in when it's clear. Or one time we were flying at night, and I usually hang out either on the tail or the left side of the window. And on the right side, the crew chief calls out that he saw RPG flyer, which pretty much looks like a flaming football at night, shoot up alongside the plane. But by the time I looked, I didn't see it. There was times when we came back from flights and we landed, and we went through and did our inspections, and there was like random, 7.62 bullet holes on the side of our planes, but nothing too damaging. Thank God, our unit came back all in one piece. We didn't lose any aircraft, we didn't lose any people. I think the worst that we had is one of our staff sergeants actually got smushed by a bunk bed, like Step Brothers style. He was laying on the bottom bunk and someone dropped on the top and went and sandwiched him in, but no real serious casualties for our unit at least. But there was some out there, that we had to respond to, and that's like the worst flight ever is carrying fallen angels to and from the sites. And
you describe what that is?
Whenever a military member dies overseas, there's a certain time period to get them back to the States. And so since we were stationed at Camp Leatherneck, which is the main base down there, we'd fly out to smaller ones, pick up the bodies or the remains, and then fly them back to Camp Leatherneck where they'd be loaded to a C-130 and flown back to the States. And not only carrying, bodies, but there was a Huey Cobra crash out there, which are two smaller types of helicopters. And that was probably the worst day. I was getting ready to go on a flight, and I looked, and here comes a giant 18-wheeler with scraps of aircraft pieces on it. Because once a plane crashes, you have to collect all the evidence so that they can do an investigation and find out why it crashed. It kind of shook the complacency from there, because we had been there for 5-6 months now, doing the same thing every day. Coming to work, get in the plane, go for a flight, come home, eat, pass out, and do it all over again. And this just kind of was a reality check to, whoa, wake up, remain vigilant. Always keep your eyes on your other plane, know what's going on. My unit, like I said, was a reserve unit, so a lot of our members had their hands in the community, working with different organizations. So we used to get tons and tons of care packages. And one thing that I know 772 did that other units didn't do is we would take just mountains of packages with us on flights. Whenever we land in, the middle of nowhere, we would toss them out to, the grunts that were out there on the ground. It made their day. And, it's probably the best flight. We were taking one unit out and bringing one unit in, and we loaded everybody on there, and they just start cheering, and they're louder than the engines. And so I think we did good. No aircraft loss, no casualties. We really supported the guys on the ground, and we had less manpower than any other active duty out there. Well, I was first given a date that I'd be home, and then like 2 days before, they were like, "Oh, just kidding. We need, so many people to stay back until our relief gets here." So I actually ended up staying home or staying in Afghanistan past Thanksgiving, when originally I had been hoping to be home for Thanksgiving, and my mom was like really amped up to see me, and that sucked. Because Thanksgiving morning we all met, and we're standing in the desert, we're dirty and we're tired, and our mass sergeant comes up and says, "So the rest of the unit just landed at home today. They're at home for Thanksgiving. We're gonna be out of here in, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, whenever." That sucked. But then eventually, the planes came to take us home, and I got home just a few days before Christmas. Well, I still, had to drive to go to college. I didn't get the chance to go right after high school, and to that point, I was still, the only one in my family that, no one in my family has gone to college. So I was still like the one. I was just like, yes, I'm gonna be the first one, go to school, get my degree. And so then I started to look for schools. And my fiance is actually from Louisville. And while I was deployed, he moved back home here to Kentucky, found a job, got an apartment. So I knew I was coming to Kentucky, no matter what, when I got out. And the only 2 schools that anyone told me about was UK and U of L. So as bad as it is to say, I kind of just went on the Google Maps and found the closest one to our apartment, and UK was it. But it turned out for the best. I really enjoyed there. So I don't know if it's because I moved to a new city or, but I felt kind of out of place. I mean, in all my classes, since I'm in freshman classes, they're all 18, 17, fresh out of high school. Never, left Kentucky, or they're 27, 28, coming back to school. So I didn't fit in either clique, and I felt lost for a while, really lost. And eventually, in one of my classes, I saw a kid with an Army backpack, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to the VRC to hang out." I was like, "What's the VRC?" They're like, "Oh, the Veteran Resource Center in Funkhauser. Come check it out." And I went, and eventually I met other people who were lost. So things started to look up from there. When you first go to college, the first day, they give you this nifty thing called a syllabus, and it outlines your year. Papers, homework, everything you have to do. You can set your schedule for the next 4 months and be fine. But yet I saw a lot of my peers in my classes struggling, just not showing up to class or not having papers done in time when we knew about it since the first day of school. So automatically, in all my classes, I was either, "Oh, that's that guy, the military girl," ugh. Or I was like the brown noser because I actually had all my work done and I did my reading. The teachers are very hands-on, want the kids to learn, and they'll be like, "Oh, we have 10 minutes left. I need somebody to share what they wrote, and we can leave early." My hand goes up right away, and I shared, and then she's waiting, and waiting, and waiting, and no one else wants to speak up. I'm just like, just read your paper. It'll take 2 minutes. And we end up sitting there for 10 minutes in silence, waiting for someone to speak. It's so frustrating. Or, I have the answer, or someone's sitting next to me, we have the answers, and our hands are raised, and the teacher wanders over to the kid that came 20 minutes late, texting on his cell phone, and asks him for the answer. I mean, it's great that teachers, they want everybody to learn, and, they're really trying to push them. It's frustrating and annoying to people like me who do our work. I think my drive to actually get a degree and, get something useful out of this experience I mean, I'm using my GI Bill, so really I'm getting paid to go to school. Like I view it as my job. I wake up in the morning, go to class, do my work, and so I don't think I'll ever leave. I mean, at least until the GI Bill stops paying for me. But I want to get that degree. I want to be the first one to go home and be like, look, I went to college. Show it off to my brothers and sisters. This was the first time in 5 years that I had to do algebra and write papers, and it was pretty annoying, pretty frustrating, but thankfully there's enough people around that are willing to help you. Like apparently there's like the Writing Center and Mass Skeller and other veterans that are engineered seniors that can do calculus in their sleep. So there's plenty of people to get help from. You just gotta find the help. Eventually, hopefully, I get my master's in social work, and I would like to work with veterans. If not at the VA itself, just helping anyone with the transition process. I mean, like I said, my dad was prior military, and I don't think he knew when he got out the options that were available, like with VA medical care or school or anything. And I see it in a lot of my younger guys, fresh out of high school that join my unit. They don't know that they could be going to school and getting it paid for. Or they don't know that when they got back from a deployment that they could get all kinds of medical help. So I think that needs to be pushed out there more, and I want to do that. Simply just knowing someone in the same situation helps. And then there's plenty of people who have already gone through freshman, sophomore year that can look back and help, because I had no idea what Blackboard was or My UK or anything like that, and there's just always someone in there to ask questions. So I mean, as long as you don't mind asking questions, they'll help you with anything. Another thing, when people are always like, oh, thank you for what you did, I think it's more, don't thank us, thank you, because if you weren't supporting us and sending us cool care packages and doing all the things that they do for us, it wouldn't be so great. No, I loved every minute of it. I mean, I love being a Marine, being in the Marine Corps, even just the reserves, 2 days a month, go back home, go hang out, go drinking with the boys, work on some helicopters, relive the good times. I mean, I just could never see myself getting completely out.